Guys, welcome to a new series, Mastering Positional Chess, where I'll be going over how to create plans, what to do in certain types of positions, basically everything that is about chess strategy and creating a chess plan after the opening. And if you enjoy watching such videos, please give this video a like, a comment, what you want to see next. And I'll start with the first concept, which is restricting the enemy's pieces. And the first type is, as you might see here below, knight paralyzing with wing pawns. So basically, let's look here from the black side. You can see a highlight this rook to e7, but I want you to think of different plans. Like, you kind of see what concept you're trying to implement here, but how? And in this position specifically, we're going to play against this knight on g3 square. And how? And the way to do it, wing pawns, is to play first h5. And again, you can see some errors. The idea is to play h4, put our knight to h5, and then eventually our rook will go to e7 and create pressure on e file on these two bishops, and maybe knight d5, but basically we're trying to gain space with black pieces. So in the following position, as you can see, this was from the game between Tamburini and Botvinnik. Botvinnik is a well-known grandmaster, very solid, very positional player. You can Google him. Bishop f1. Now h4. So basically we continue our plan. We play h4, now kicking the knight back to e2. And now, after knight h5, we continue gaining space on the king side. And the threat right now is to play g5, f4, and to activate our bishop on c8. And of course, if we manage to take this much space, it's going to be very, very complicated for white to play on. I mean, their pieces are just stuck. This bishop on f1 is absolutely bad. This bishop is going to be terrible, as we have absolutely beautiful pawn triangle c5, d6, b6, which is blocking this bishop on e3. But here white did a terrible mistake. They played knight f4, which is a blunder, and now I want you to find the winning continuation for black pieces. You can pause the video and try to solve it while I'm revealing the solution right now. The point is, after knight f4 takes, you can play bishop d4. And now, unless white sacrifices the queen on d4, there is no way to save this bishop, as after king h1, g5, this bishop on e3 has no squares to go, and black won this game. Now let's get to example number 2. This is some sort of queen's gambit position, and once again we are using our wing pawns to play against this knight on g3 square. And how you do it, you can't play h5 because then knight will take, so we gotta prepare this h5 move by playing first g6. And as you can see the arrows here, usual ideas for white in queen's gambit structures is to play on the queen side by playing b4, b5, creating weaknesses, while here specifically for black it's actually quite typical. If knight goes to g3, we always have this h5, h4 idea. f3, and white are basically trying to go for some sort of e4, h5. Once again, we continue with our h4 idea. Bishop e2, knight d7, king f2, and you might say, alright, what is this king f2? But king f2 is quite typical. Basically here white want to bring the rook to e1 and kind of make this artificial castle. But h4 is played. And the point is now, after h4, if knight goes back, this rook is locked. So after knight f1, it's kind of bad. So this knight will have to go to d2 at some point to free up the rook so the rook can escape. Because right now it's just terrible. And after knight f8, there are a lot of interesting ideas like knight h7, knight g5, knight d4, knight e6, knight g5, and again knight e4. Knight d2, rook e7, rook e1, bishop f5, h3. The point of h3, white played h3. Their idea is basically to prevent h3 and never calculate it, but after h3, as you might see here on the diagram, g3 square is weakened, and black can use it. Rook e8, putting some pressure on e3, knight f1, knight d6, queen d2, knight g5, and black gain advantage, and the position is absolutely lost. Like, there is knight d4 ideas, there is bishop h3 ideas, and as you might see, black were improving while white were stuck on their first and second ranks. Now let's get, hope you understood this concept. If not, let me know in the comments, I might make more videos on this. Now let's get to another concept of restricting enemies' pieces. The second principle is quite the same. Basically, it's about knights again, but of course it's not about knights on b6 or g6 or b3 or g3. Now it's about, let's say, knight on g7 or on b7. So in the following position, as you might see, the knight on g7 is highlighted because it's trying to go to f5, or I mean h5 is not really a good move, but f5 is a good move. But here, of course, white tried to prevent it. So first we see that white are playing the forced moves. They're trying to get to the endgame and use this vulnerable knight on g7 against black. So bishop c6, queen c4, and now black have to defend this bishop on c6, and takes, we're transposing to this endgame, and now again we're attacking by playing rook d7. Now if knight f5 here, guys, yes, you attack the bishop, but I can play rook f5, and then let's say e takes f5 or g takes f5, I'll take rook on, I will take bishop with the rook on e7, and white will have a winning position. So black play rook e8, since this bishop is not able to move due to rook f7. And in the following position, we're finally getting to this knight restriction by playing g4. And as you might actually see here, the plan is highlighted. We play g4, now f5 square is locked from this knight, and our plan is to go knight d4 and knight f6 and getting a very big advantage. Here black played h5, h3, we're protecting, we're not exchanging, because then knight f5 comes with a lot of power. We gotta make sure we don't trade this pawns. We gotta play on, we gotta keep the pressure on this knight on g7, takes, b5. So black were trying to create counterplay, but now after knight d4, rook c2, knight f6, they're in huge trouble, as now they lose this knight on g7, and the game continued for a while. Rook f4, and here white delivered brilliant bishop c5, and they won the game since rook on c8 is not able to take the bishop, and rook f8 is a threat. Black resigned. Now let's get to the second example, and now knight is on a7, and unfortunately for white, they're not able to play a4 since queen on e6 will be taking pawn on b3. So here I want you to try and find the first move. So as I said, you know, if it was endgame, then it would have been a completely different story. And here, even though white are down a pawn, they're still trying to go to the endgame by playing queen g4 and offering a queen trade. So now black responded with, so if queen g4 takes, this knight isn't going anywhere, this pawn is under attack, rook will come to g7, white have a lot of pressure, and we kinda will see the same thing later. f5, queen c4, takes, and now we are restricting knight on a7, we're threatening pawn on e5, and we're also trying to put our rook to d7 and just press black. So black responded with rook f8. Their idea is rook d7, rook f7, rook d8, protecting this would result in rook d7, and eventually black are just a lot worse due to their passive pieces. So white played bishop e5, rook f7, and now c5. Let's say now knight b5, again just a4, and now knight c7 won't be possible due to rook d8. I want you to calculate this in your head. So knight b5, a4, let's say knight c7, and it looks like knight is going to d5, but rook d8 rook f8, and bishop c7 dead on the line. And if knight c8 here, I mean, it's just terrible. Knight will not go to b6 or d6. It's just an absolutely horrible ending. Knight c8, f4, and now black collapsed under pressure and they played b6, which looks kind of logical, guys. Since they're trying kind of to free up the knight, they're trying to get knight out of here from c8, but b6 unfortunately is not the right approach, and I want you to find the winning combination in this position. So here the point is we can create a very powerful pass pawn. We have active bishop on e5, which controls b8 square. We play rook d8 and after rook f8 we don't trade rooks, but instead we're playing rook c8, and c takes b6, pawn promotes, and in the following position black admitted their loss. Now let's get to the next concept. The next concept is pawn barrier, and in this case, as you can see, there could be f3 e4 or f6 e5, kind of those little pawn chains. And let's take a look at this position. So here black first play e5, kicking the knight from the center. White play knight f3, and now how do we set up this pawn barrier with black pieces? So as you might see here, queen on a1, bishop on b2, knight on f3 are all looking towards this very weak e5 pawn. But here we have a complete move sequence which results in defending this pawn. We first play knight e4, we attack pawn on f2, and now they gotta protect. White play knight d3, and now we play f6. And the point is, look how this bishop on b2 suddenly from an absolutely insanely powerful piece, it turned to be a very bad bishop. And after it takes, I mean, white have no piece coordination. It's just absolutely awful. Like, they don't have any good moves. Knight on f3 is not able to jump to d4, e5 or g5 to set up any threats. Bishop can go to d4, I mean, it's totally restricted. Here white played queen b1, black continued with a5, and after bishop a3, b4, soon black gained a very solid advantage. Knight d6, knight e4, takes, queen b3, queen b5, offering queen trade. As you can see here in the endgame, black would have a very strong play. Queen d1, rook c5, and after a3, rook d5. I mean, I don't want to continue further as it stops here, but black have a very solid advantage, and it all started with this knight e4 and f6 setup. Now let's look at the second example here, and we have an endgame. And as you might actually see here, once again, bishop on b2, we play f6. So now we want to play e5 and restrict the activity of this bishop and knight, and going from d4 square, which is very crucial. White played g4, and now we play e5, setting up this pawn barrier, not letting white go to d4 square. King f1, rook c8, takes, king e2, and here black delivered knight f2. After king f2, rook d3, black put pressure on e3 pawn, black put pressure on b3 knight. The point is, if knight goes further, placed, let's say, knight c5, black simply win a pawn, and they have a much better rook endgame due to the pawn structure, and of course being a pawn up also makes them feel a lot better. And now let's get to the final concept of this video. The final concept of this video will mostly apply for those of you who are big fans of King's Indian defense, as it's a very typical structure, and we're referring to it as bishop cage, and it always occurs after bishop c3 and takes, which happens in this position. So let's see what the idea is. So in this position here, typically white are trying to play g4, white are trying to play b4, but after takes, this bishop on e3 is just absolutely bad. Black just start route in a4, king h8, knight f2, trying to push g4, rook g8, blocking this g4 idea, king h1, queen a8, rook g1, queen g6, queen d2, bishop d7, g3, rook e8, a5, rook e7, and this game actually finished in a draw. Rook g7, rook g1, knight e8, h3, h5, and players agreed to a draw. But basically this bishop is very bad. Well, yeah, you might say the same about this bishop, but the problem is typically it's in like kind of close position. Here specifically white have no counterplay, and yeah, the starting maneuver, let's say if black don't play, I mean, because it looks scary, guys. I know you kinda let the only defender of the skin to go and basically sacrifice itself, but in the following examples the point is this bishop is not able to do anything on this diagonal. Since pawn on c3 locks, we have beautiful c5 pawn which blocks d4 square. There is no point of basically contact here, and this bishop is terrible. So let's take a look at the following example as well. So here again, bishop h, first black played e4, and after knight f2, bishop c3, b takes c3, knight d f6. Once again, we saw it in the previous example, bishop e3, king h8, and as you see here, I highlighted that basically white's bishop is not able to go to d4, to c3, to b2, and set up any threats on this h8, a1 long diagonal. And here white tried to play h3, but it turned out to be a huge mistake. Not huge mistake, but it's positional mistake, since now g3 square is very bad, and black played rook g8, and white are not able to play immediate g4. Let's say g4, which is a mistake, we play takes, and here due to this tactical resource, knight g4 wins the game. Rook g4, queen h4, black take the bishop, and will eventually win the game. So after rook g8, white played queen d2, knight g7, and knight jumps to h5 and g3. Knight d1, knight h5, takes, bishop f2. Once again, this bishop is terrible. Bishop d7, bishop e1, rook f8, knight d3, queen f6, and here black might have different ideas of going to h6, g6, so rook goes to basically queen goes to h6, and maybe rook f8 to f6, g6, and trying to create pressure on g file, but this game ended in a draw as well. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you could learn something new. Once again, any feedback is appreciated. I put a lot of effort, you know, to kind of get these positions to you. But yeah, again, feedback in the comments. I'll see you in the next video, in the next lesson of this series. Bye bye.